and welcome to this week's episode of Talking Skritt. I'm your host, John, better known as Dale, around Yakspin, with a fantastic show for you. Elite Specializations this weekend, PvP Season 8 on the horizon, and party info for PAX West attendees, and much more. But first, let me introduce you to my fellow host. He is a moderator over at MMO Champion. With the Weaver this weekend, he will be buried up to his neck in skills. Hopefully it won't take him 10 years to figure it all out. Say hello to Jim.
Hi, everybody. If I blip off randomly throughout the course of this show, it's because lightning struck my apartment.
Oh. Man, got to change all the names and stuff.
Oh my god. Okay, I know it's on my face cam right now, but I really wish we would have just cut to inks right there because the face is just making.
I looked out of the corner of my eye, I was like, what the? Okay. He streams over on... wow. He streams over on Twitch where he answers the age-old question. With Deadeye out and playable, when do you think they will give everyone reflect shields? Say hello to Age.
Everyone has reflect shields.
Yeah, but up like 24/7.
Oh, I hope not. That would just that wouldn't invalidate just me. It would invalidate a lot of builds. But hi guys.
And you can see his stuff over on Twitch and YouTube at MMO Inks. After getting to try the new Elite Specs, will he have to go back and create 8 new characters? He is our Canadian bacon of Guild Wars 2. Say hello to Inks.
I love that there's a delay. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to talk a lot about how underwhelming Ranger is, but I think they did a good job.
Hey, step behind. Renegade's in front here. But, yeah, let's jump right into it. So if you don't know what we're talking about, this weekend, if you're watching this later in the year, well, first off, I hope you're enjoying POF. Second off, basically August 18th to the 20th. So for people watching live, Sunday's the last day. This weekend, you will be able to play the Elite Specs for Path of Fire in War v World and PvP only for all Guild Wars 2 accounts in good standing, of course. So you don't have to have pre-ordered the POF. You don't need hot. You don't, as long as you have even the free option. As long as it's in good standing, you can.
Even some accounts in not good standing.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I mean, what?
To be fair, anybody who had an account in not good standing could have just created a throwaway email on a free account, so...
They could have.
But yeah, you do get 2 demo character slots, and basically it copies your account, so anything you have in your like bank and stuff like that, while it shows up on that character, it's not going to take away from your main account. So, but yeah, Guild Chat showed off some of the skills and went a little bit more in depth, but since now we've gotten some hands-on with it, we're going to show some of the video from Guild Chat, but also talk about each Elite Spec. Let's go in alphabetical order, which is lucky for Age, I would say, because first up would be the Deadeye.
Judgment.
Take it away, Age.
Okay, so first of all, the one thing I was actually really curious about is if I could do might stacking, and I can. Basically, you run all cantrips, improv for extras, because the way it works is that your stolen skills gives the boons from the stolen skills to everyone around you, so up to 5 people. And when you use a stolen skill on a marked target, you give 10 might to everyone around you. And so you can pretty much keep up 25 stacks of might in addition to other boons. Which
Isn't it also around the target, too?
Yeah. No. So basically what I did is I ran Dagger Pistol, and I just auto-attacked like crazy, and I used my Deadeye and resets as much as possible. And I was able to personally get permanent Fury, permanent Vigor, permanent Swiftness, permanent 25 stacks of Might. And the thing is, because I can reset my Deadeye, I'm able to share the boons from trickery as well with everyone around me. So there's more dodges for people, more fury for people, and those last a long time. And by the time my Deadeye comes back up, I'm going to be able to share those boons even more. So it just keeps those skills up. So you can actually run like a PS Warrior for the banners, and then you can have a PS Thief in your second group, which is really cool.
Yes, thief. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like chat saying every class is a PS Warrior now. That's kind
Rifle
of
3 alone can stack 25 might on the thief. So yeah, it's
Yeah. And yeah. Go ahead.
The 4 skill, the kill shot. with
Judgment.
That's Judgment. Does so like I was getting 18k crits.
yeah. I seen some people with really crazy crits, and I don't know if it was just the game mode they were in or the people they reversed or whatever. But I seen some crazy like 30k crits and stuff. Now I was getting like Malthanis. I was getting 16 to 18k was like what I was seeing.
I didn't do much with the build, and it was against
Right.
the indestructible golem. And Ziguro in chat brings up the point is like I'm playing my Elementalist, I'm still gonna throw up Earth Shield. When I see the graphic for the Death's Judgment on me, boop. Have that back. Just take it.
no. See,
I
you
don't
wait
want
like
it.
2 seconds for them to shoot it, and then you go boop.
Yeah. So I was curious about rifle and how it would play out. It seems like there's enough in the rifle kit if you spec for sniper's cover as well, and some of the cantrips allows you to maneuver around the maps. I still think dagger pistol can still beat a rifle thief easy, but it's not as horrible as I thought. It's not. It has the utility to be good, unlike Rifle Warrior, which doesn't really have the utility.
So what you're saying is rifle will actually get used by a profession.
Yeah, I think it's not the greatest. I don't think it's the absolute greatest thing in the world, but it's not that bad if you just want to have some fun.
I'm curious too on how well this will perform, like rifle and stuff will perform in PvE, because some of the damage that it can output seems pretty strong.
Yeah,
I don't know how consistent or for how long, because I'm not really a thief main personally, but I know Brazil is pretty excited about it. Obviously, in World vs. World, I think for roamers, this will have a sort of a niche, fun place. That's kind of where I'm most excited to play with it personally. But
yeah, I think in PvE, because the minor trait resets to your Deadeye's mark, it's gonna have a place because you can again share a lot of boons, but also you'll always have a ton of damage going in. Rifle does mostly single target damage, but it's still for like world bosses, it's gonna be good. Rifle's gonna be good. For multiple hits, you can swap to some other weapons if you want. But I think that I will have a place for sure.
right.
Sounds like chat's playing some duck hunt in World v. World. So
I'm foreseeing like organized WW play having defenders, and they just have an AA squad, like 3 or 4 Deadeyes camped at each tower.
Yeah.
So
Now-
what's kind of fun and interesting, it really depends on the person and the player, obviously. But I know, for example, me and Brazil jumped into World vs. World the other day together, and he was telling me that there was this ranger who kind of sits at this one spot, and he waits for people to come out of the keep and stuff. And obviously, Deadeye is going to be way more effective than whatever build that guy was using. So I think if you enjoy that play style, if you're a patient person and only mind getting a couple of kills every now and then it can be pretty fun, rewarding gameplay for the sniper, for the Deadeye.
So campers.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's kind of part and parcel with wanting to play a sniper. So
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah. I think more my style will be like a run and gun type of thing. But I haven't tried rifle 100% yet in World vs. World, but we'll see how it goes.
And I don't know, have you guys ever played Star Wars: The Old Republic, that MMO?
Yeah.
A lot of people are kind of equating it to like an action-oriented, what is it, Imperial agent?
Smuggler or agent, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because of the cover mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I can see it. That's why it was interesting when we first seen the cover mechanic and people were reacting to it. I was like, oh, well, that reminds me very much of the SWTOR classes that used to do that.
Yeah.
Works in a lot of the similar ways. You dodge from cover to cover, and
yeah, so it definitely seems interesting. Now, what about their utilities? Are they something you want to have on your bar, or it's like, because they use what, cantrips?
Cantrips, and I have to say some of them are really good. So one resets your Deadeye's mark. Your heal actually cleanses conditions and heals you for each stack of malice you have on your target, which is really good. So you can cleanse up to 5-7 conditions. The drawback is it's a 30-second cooldown on cantrips, but the Elite Shadow Meld is actually really good because it removes revealed from you, and it gives you that 3 seconds of stealth by default, which gives you enough time to actually, do something significant. There's another one that lays down an AOA field, which is actually pretty strong, which was surprisingly strong actually. So that's another good one as well. And then there's one that actually knocks down or knocks up depending if your target's marked or not. So that's another good skill too. It's because Thief doesn't have a lot of CC in their utilities. You have like tripwire and that trap there. So having
Scorpion wire, technically.
Oh yeah, Scorpion wire, yeah. But tripwire is actually the trap, I think. But yeah, so having that cantrip that actually does CC is a pretty nice CC for a Thief to have, and it's around your I think it's either around you or around your target, and I think it's a brief delay too. So, but yeah, I think the utilities are pretty good.
I don't think I actually used a single utility when I was playing the Deadeye.
I didn't either.
I was a little too wowed by the.
It really adds on to the Deadeye. I'd highly suggest trying out a few of them.
Cool.
Okay, well, next up, let us talk about the Firebrand. So this is the Guardian Elite Spec, and basically you are getting an axe main hand and mantras. And while I go check on a bargain dog, Jim, everybody want to get their thoughts, but I know Jim was looking at this one as well as I was.
That was the Firebrand is the one I wanted to jump on real quick because that's the first character I made. The axe, as it exists right now, completely pushes sword from main hand. As a main hand melee weapon, axe is objectively better than sword. At least that's how I feel about it right now, because every swing of the axe is 2 hits. Every swing of the axe carries Condi with it. The symbol has a lot of Condi and is just natively bigger, I feel, than the other symbols. I don't like the symbol because it doesn't have a boon attached to it.
Oh, really?
No boon. No boon on the axe symbol. I thought thematically resistance could fit, but I don't know if they want to put resistance on something that is so readily available.
I would have put burning, to be honest.
Well, there is burning. I think there's burning and maybe even bleeding, but I think the bleeding was because I was using an axe attack.
The boon would be... Yeah, I guess...
Resistance.
Resistance might fit, yeah.
Especially since it's supposed to be a Condi weapon, resistance makes more sense to me. And also with the supportive nature of Guardian and the supportive aspects of Firebrand. But basically everything else is either covered or way too good to put on a symbol that is more readily available. Like, you can't put quickness on it because... Yeah, I know, QED, that's exactly what I said. Resistance seems to be the only thing thematic for it, but it's like maybe a 6 or 8 second cooldown. So putting down a giant AoE resistance circle every 6 to 8 seconds would be kind of crazy.
It'd be like 1 second of resistance.
Right.
But maybe might. Maybe might.
I don't know if they want to double up on that because Scepter gives might.
But you're using Axe on hand, right?
Yeah. But none of the they actually changed it because I remember when they first changed Smite into a symbol, it was Fury, just like the sword when they changed Sword 2 into a symbol.
Okay.
But then they changed Smite, they changed the Scepter symbol into giving might instead.
My guess is they felt resistance was too strong, and that's why you didn't say it.
Absolutely would be way too strong for how low of a cooldown. Like QED's "Are you serious?" is I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I just don't know what else they would give.
I'll probably just give might. I mean, it works out even if you run like a Condi or power build. So.
Right. But the Axe 3 is really good because it's basically Greatsword 5 from the Reaper. It's a multi-target pull. It's a narrower and shorter line, but I also think it's a lower cooldown than the Greatsword pull on Reaper. But
yeah,
the Axe is a good weapon. The Axe is a really good addition. The auto attacks are sweeping. Like you have a lot of cleave. So Burn Guardians, what with using Virtue of Justice trait from the Virtues trait line, 3 hits and an AoE burn proc instead. It's gonna be good for burn builds, especially in AoE situations.
I like that they added bleeding in there too. Something Guardian always lacked was extra conditions.
Yeah. That's burn has been the only damaging condition they've had access to. So having another one is really nice.
What about support, Firebrand?
It's kind of nuts, really.
Yeah.
The tomes are really good. Even if you're not using them for damage, the F1. What do you mean? What happens to Alacrity? QED.
Oh, there's talk about Firebrand replacing Chrono, but I don't think it'll replace because of Alacrity.
No,
right, they won't. Not only that, but the Chrono's AoE is better than the Cone.
Yeah, I think that's my only. That's my biggest complaint about the Firebrand is that all of its support is in a cone, so facing is a big deal.
Which for people who get used to it, it won't be that big a deal. But I'm just the general play.
The only problem is I've seen that they've had like technical issues with facing in this game before, so that's one of the things I worry about.
Right.
Especially since backpedaling is slower than running in the opposite direction, but sometimes you want to be actually doing something in that direction. So
how do you feel about the cast times on your F skills?
I'm okay with them.
Yeah, for as powerful as they are, they need to be longer to be like interrupted in like PvP or World v World, I would say. And I mean PvE,
I think it hurts it in PvP, but otherwise the other game modes can compensate. But
and I kind of agree with Crow. They're trying to make gameplay more active, and it makes sense with the short cone for Guardians because they're kind of more of a frontline support rather than a backline. I mean, you're wearing heavy armor, so that sort of makes sense to me. The tomes, I don't even know if it would hurt them all that much in PvP because they're pretty snappy on some of the cast times. Not to mention some of the other ones, like you can just supplement that with stability, like Consecrate, the one Consecrate Hallowed Ground, or the Shout standard Hold the Line, I think it is. So if you're really worried about your cast time going through, you can just throw those shouts in. Plus you give massive boon drops to everyone around you.
That, I mean, you can do it from far away and then just have, Divine Intervention, which will just teleport to that person. I mean, so you could pop in real quick. So there are ways around it, but, I mean, this is also coming from someone that doesn't PvP, so I'm sure other more intelligent people have crunched it. But, I mean, I think it's a fair enough trade-off for such the power that's behind the tomes. Like, I mean, granted, I would love to see instant cast. I mean, Arena, if you want to do that.
No, instant cast is too powerful. But I think that as a Guardian player, when you're using this, I think you'll find that you get interrupted quite often when trying to use them. Is all I'm really sort of devil's advocating here. Is all. The other thing I would say too, and we haven't talked about mantras very much, but unless you really, really need to, do not use that third charge on that mantra, because that cooldown, and rightfully so, probably is punishingly not good.
Oh.
And I've seen people complaining about that, but that's sort of the gameplay that you have to decide between.
And I was gonna say, I think that was the thing that they talked about. Yeah.
Or do you want to just use 2 and wait? And personally, for most of these skills where they, and Guardian's not the only one, but there's several of them that have skills like this, you really don't want to use that last skill unless you absolutely need to.
Now, the mantras for Mesmers, did they change them to be recharging like this? Or is this just a Guardian thing? I didn't have a chance to mess with my Mesmer after they made the ammo count thing.
I thought they gave the ammo thing, but now I could be wrong.
I don't know about Mesmers, but
okay, chat's saying they did. Yeah.
So I don't think the final charges are worth the cooldowns that they have. I agree that the cooldowns are fine for what they want to do for the final charge. I don't think the final effects for some of them are worth it.
What? That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I think in some ways, I don't know. I really haven't spent enough time with it, honestly, but I think that it's good design if you force people into making that decision. If you make that last skill seem tempting, then that could be really interesting gameplay.
That was one of my bigger issues with base Guardian virtues in the first place, is their active effects just never seem to be worth using them over retaining the passive effects.
Yeah, they're like signets for the most part.
I mean,
especially
that's an interesting question, Chad. Saying, do you think ANet is pushing different specs to different modes? I mean, I think we saw it with HOT. I think most definitely. Like, it just seems like some gravitate more naturally.
I think that when they design these things, they have most game modes in mind. Like Spellbreaker obviously is a very PvP oriented spec, just like Scrapper was very PvP oriented. And in the long haul, I don't think that that's a bad thing, because you're going to get 2, 3, 4 specs, and initially people are going to be upset. Like, I've already seen some people who don't like their main class's new elite spec for whatever reason, and they're upset. And I understand why they're upset. I get it, right? Because it's a new expansion, you get a new spec, you want to play the new spec, you want to love the new spec, and you want it to be powerful. The truth is, Druid, which we haven't got, Ranger, which we haven't gotten to just yet, like, sometimes the other option of the elite spec you have might just be better in some game modes over your new one. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I understand how that can be disappointing for some people, but as we get this expansion and the next expansion and whatever, you're going to get more and more elite specs to choose from. And I don't know that it's so terrible all the time that these things fulfill particular roles in particular game modes.
Right. And it's not bad. And Forest Spirits is bringing up the meta thing that there's going to be, like, people complained about, like, I know Inks talked about not being able to play Ranger in WW previously on the show. And that's not necessarily because Ranger is bad in WW, but it's because a lot of the power is, it is kind of bad in WW, if only because a lot of the power is in the pet. And WW is a game mode where the pet doesn't gain that 90% AoE damage reduction because it's a PvP game mode. So the first few seconds of that Zerg fight, your pet's dead.
Yep.
So, and they don't have that many ranged pets, so you can't have a pet that can keep itself out of danger and be able to do damage. Actually, are there ranged pets?
Yeah, there are.
The Devourers, I think.
Yeah. There's Devourers.
Bristleback is ranged.
And the other thing is talking about something that is extremely bad in PvE or PvP or WW. in comparison to the other stuff, but can it still do something effectively? Like Inks was talking about that ranger that camped the spot outside of a fortress. Sure, you might want to be that person who's like in the thick of things doing something in PvP, but your spec, you want to play a class and the class just can't handle it.
I think there's a misunderstanding by the community as well. There is currently, and it will continue to exist, this is not going to change with any expansion or anything ArenaNet does. There is always going to be a meta or a best at. Papa Nemesis coming in, the best at. But that doesn't mean that you have to play best at, because the content and the elite specs are not designed around best at. There will be elite specs that fall into the best at content, but for example, you can't play Rev in PvE. Yes, you can. It's very viable in PvE raiding content. Raiding content is not so difficult or so stringent, even in CM mode, that you need to play the best meta and best classes all the time. And we'll take it one step further. People do not change their classes to be best at in every single fight. If you look at QT's website, and this doesn't fall on QT, by the way, this is not their fault at all. But if you look at QT's website and you go through every single class, they will tell you which class is the most meta at every single raid boss based on perfect statistical play, which most people, myself included, will not be able to achieve. It doesn't mean you won't kill the bosses if you run 2 Necros or if you don't take a particular class. There are obviously classes that excel in particular areas because they bring something to the raid itself, because they bring a particular buff, Grace of the Land, for example, or Alacrity, Quickness, and so on. There are particular things that you want because it gives you such a large benefit and such a large edge. But when it comes down to DPS classes, you don't have to take the best at every boss to be successful. You simply don't. And you can go watch multiple raid streams where people play more or less whatever they want to in order to do that.
Yeah.
The problem with game mode, sorry, just 1 second.
No,
the problem with game modes like World vs. World and structured PvP is that it takes that and twists it into a whole different area. And the reason where classes like Thief and Ranger are not welcomed in those large Zergs are because when 2 equal Zergs face off against one another, or even in PvP, when 2 classes face off against each other, it's about having the exact right tools to win that match. And if you load up one team with weaker classes, it's unfortunate, but weaker underperforming classes, you're going to usually lose that fight unless skill takes hold. Now in PvP, skill can take hold, and you can lopside those matches. But in World vs. World, due to its restrictions, that's much more difficult to do. And so you'll see commanders who stack particular classes with particular builds and a particular composition and exclude things like Rangers and Thieves because they don't bring the right tools to the table for those compositions, unfortunately.
Yeah, and kind of like what Inks is saying, and going what Four Spears was saying, like getting insta-kicked from as a Rev in raids. It's like, unfortunately, that's where pugging comes into it in any game. I mean, you know, I'm not going to fault QT for it. They're figuring out, like he said, what are the best ones. You're always going to have a best. It's like you're never going to have that perfect, you know. They're all exactly even. But you're always going to have that, like, best, and it's just, unfortunately, I don't want it to sound rude, because I'm in this spot, too, where all the common players are looking at this saying, this is what's going to make it the easiest for us. We don't have to think as much. That's how WoW always was. I mean, once they started doing pugging, raid, and stuff, it's like, you run the meta so we don't have to think. While QT is playing the game at a high skill set, I want to say, if you're, I don't want to say everybody, but if you're going through a rotation, I look at it as you're playing DDR while they're playing the game. Like, you're just, you know, 1 3 4 switch, 1 5, you know, switch. It's like, But
And I kind of I don't mean to interject because all this meta talk is kind of interesting, but I kind of want to get through the classes and then we can do that at the end because Mantis also brought a really good point up, and I wanted to get to that too. So with the classes losing identity with stuff, so I kind of want to get to that after we talk about all the classes, just so we're not here for
make a note because
3
it is
hours.
an interesting conversation.
Yeah, definitely we'll readdress it once we go through all of them because that's a nice way to sum them all up. But yeah, let's go to the next one. Holosmith. So this is the engineer elite spec. You are getting a sword, and what are the names of the utility skills? Okay, so
very Asura based kind of class, very much Asura tech.
yeah, I've heard so
That was
many good
interesting,
things about
right?
this.
That was an interesting. That was not a revelation. That was an interesting sort of quip by the ArenaNet devs, where they had said that Scrapper was char tech, a char feel, and this obviously is an Asura feel. Just interesting. I don't know. I found that interesting. I like how they add these like world building lore aspects to the classes that they didn't do with Heart of Thorns, really, or at least they didn't make it apparent in Heart of Thorns.
Yeah, they didn't do too much with Heart of Thorns. Like, they talked about Scrapper and how it was they took that char negative name and made it a positive. But here, like I think we talked about last week, I remember Inks talking about it, was you find out what the Holosmith does for like a living instead of just being a profession. You find out possibly why they're using a sword, so I can't wait to get into POF and hear more.
It's funny
about
too
all this.
because help me sort of addresses something that's also interesting. We just said it's Asura tech, and that's not totally accurate because it talks about using the Zephyrite's magic in order to fuel their forge. So it's not totally Asura tech, even though
not totally accurate.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, because I remember in Guild Chat they said the trait lines, instead of how they compared it to Reaper in Hot, where going horizontal you kind of had themes, whereas for their trait lines, if you're going vertical, they kind of have themes of, and I think they said it's like building a lightsaber or a generic plasma sword, just in case, where you kind of have the hilt, crystal, and I think beam, or it was something along those lines, where each column kind of represented that in particular. I mean, do you prefer that more so, that it's structured like that instead of all the way across?
I like it being structured in general, because definitely when you're going through a new elite specialization, you want to go through and not be horribly confused at what you're going through. You can, like, for example, on Scourge, it's very simple. There's a Condi line, there's a corruption line, and there's a support line.
I think I prefer it that way.
Yeah. I haven't looked at Holosmith traits entirely yet, so I'm not sure how vertically it works, but
I guess the best thing would be, and this doesn't currently exist unless I just missed it, but it would be cool if they thematically fit horizontally, but also had thematic teams vertically as well, like both. Do you know what I mean? Instead of one or the other, because I feel like vertically synergizes better than horizontally.
Well, I think it's more their vertical traits. I can't remember the adept and master tier, but I know the grandmaster tier all focuses on how you handle heat.
Right.
So it's all, and specifically it's all about your overheat. Like the first one is you vent heat when you dodge and it causes an AoE damage burst. The second one is I think the second one is you have the 150% heat set up. And then the third one is you can no longer vent heat normally, but when you overload, you negate the initial burst damage. You still take the ticking damage, but you also cause a large burst of damage around yourself when you overheat. Plus, there's a minor trait that when you're venting heat, you heal. And then there's another one that when you vent heat, you do something else. And that overload trait that prevents you from venting heat normally allows those to work when you vent from overheat. So that's kind of a thematic tie that I like. I think that I like that they did that. So I don't know if they mesh well like horizontally across the trait lines with what they're doing, but I do think that they do a very good job with that.
The other interesting the interesting thing about these elite specs, but Holosmith is one that you can really sort of tell, is that they don't synergize well. They don't synergize super well with the core specializations. There's some synergy there, but there's not like an overwhelming amount. Holosmith is not the only one that suffers from this. A lot of them do actually, and it feels very self-contained in the elite spec itself, which is a bit of a shame. I wish like, you know, if you take 131, I wish that synergized better with particular cores, and it's not always the case necessarily. Those are sort of like the downsides. The plus sides of Holosmith is that all of them look really cool, but Holosmith looks amazing. I think that there's important gameplay between having between blowing yourself up and making sure that you keep heat at a particular level. So I think that's sort of fun. Personally, I prefer keeping heat at a particular level rather than blowing myself up, but you can get some really crazy explodey numbers. So
speaking of numbers, they're going to get nerfed.
Yeah, well,
they do so much damage over such a massive area that it's just not. It's not. Let's just not. I don't want to see this in PvP in its current state. Which I don't think it's going to hit PvP in its current state, but I'd be afraid of it.
Yeah. So the problem with it is that, yeah, again, lots of damage, which is okay, but it's in such a big area as well. And they have quite a big area. They have quite a few good CCs as well. And it's always whenever I fought a holo, it was always like, I have to be careful, I have to be careful, I have to be careful not to get hit by the big AoEs, especially the ones that can knock you. You have to evade those and things like that. You have to keep those in mind. I feel like there is some skill involved in order to fight a holo properly, but I still think some of those numbers need toning down, or some of the skills need smaller area of effect. But overall, I think it's a decent elite spec.
I love it. I think it's
very fun.
I think it's a lot of fun. I think thematically it's a lot of fun. I think playing it is a lot of fun. Obviously, right now it's very powerful, but numbers are always gonna. You know, Revenant was very powerful when it was introduced, and that got nerfed. You know, a lot. So. You know, numbers are always going to change. I try not to focus too much on that personally, but even their utilities seem generally useful compared to some of the other elite specs that we'll talk about. So I don't know, and I'm a sucker for the holo weapons, the double pistols, the giant sword, the hammer, just everything looks really great.
I like the elite.
Yeah, the giant laser. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I will say the other complaint I've seen about Holosmith is its offhand weapon. Shield and pistol are a little underwhelming. So it's the shame about that is you'll never see another offhand weapon for engineer that isn't included in a new elite spec. So you'll never be able to, like, unless something, well, I don't want to say never, unless something changes in the future, you'll never, you know, get another offhand. So their offhand shield and pistol can be a little bit underwhelming, I think, but I don't think they're as terrible as people sort of make them out to be. I guess it depends on the game mode, but
I think shield is actually a really good offhand because it just gives you that extra defense, and I think there's a pull in it too. While the rest, like the sword and your utilities,
yeah, but in PvP,
okay, yeah.
And pistol is so for PvE, but I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
If you're doing a Condi build with Holosmith, pistol offhand is fine.
Right.
Yeah, power, I'd go shield because you still have a really strong main hand. Sword is a great main hand, plus the bonus damage. You get a lot of bonus damage percentage on sword based on your heat level. So you build up heat, you go to sword, you just auto attack. You're not gaining heat, you're not losing heat, you're fine.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger multiplier on your damage if you're a power build with those multipliers than if you're playing Condi. So you don't really need the extra oomph from your offhand. And then you've got a block, which is always good to have in PvE because say you can't get out of the big attack, whatever is being done. You block it. And then you've got the reflect that can also be turned into a pull, so you've got more break bar damage, so always useful. And then if you really need something else, you can always run a kit, a ranged kit like grenades or the elixir gun if you need something to... I'd go for it. Yeah.
I just seen Boots playing with it, and it was doing a lot of damage, let's just say.
Oh, boy.
Well, let's look at our next one, and it is the Mirage. So this is the Mesmer Elite Spec, and they do get Axe main hand, and I forget what they call each of their utilities, because it's... Deceptions? Yeah. That sounds about right, yeah. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, have you guys got the try the Mirage?
I didn't get a chance to touch it.
I'm a terrible Mesmer.
Me too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the first thing I'll touch on is the utilities. I think I was trying it out a bit, and I got suggestions from my chat earlier, and only the Elite is actually really good. The rest kind of leaves something to be desired a little bit. I think Mirage is pretty fun though to play, even though I'm terrible at it. But I still think it's fun to play. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of thinking involved, and I think Mesmer players will definitely have a better opinion about how it is. But I think it can work out pretty well. The blur trait that you do when you dodge is very interesting as well.
I like it, actually. I was having fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had fun with it as well, but yeah, go ahead.
So, please take this with a grain of salt. My extremely limited knowledge. I heard Helseth say that he wasn't impressed. I hope he sort of does a video or highlights a stream where he talks in detail about it, because he's, from a PvP perspective, super knowledgeable about the class. From a world versus world perspective, it's going to make the Condi build that they already use even more ridiculous. So that's going to make it a bigger headache. I will say that the skills feel smooth and fluid to use. I just like kind of hopping all over the freaking place and creating illusions and clones and everything, and just causing, like, I'm already a person who gets semi-confused. This is going to be hell for me. It's going to be nightmare. I won't be able to tell where the hell the Mesmer is ever, because it's just that bad for me. I'm bad at identifying that. I think in PvE there's a power build that is sort of emerging a little bit, but it's going to need a lot more testing and stuff. And for PvP, I think it was a little underwhelming, but I have heard people playing shatter builds that seem to work. I'm not sure if that really involves Mirage directly, though. The skills seem pretty cool. Everything seems to work pretty fluid. Yeah. But I think damage-wise, it might be slightly underwhelming, or class-wise, it might be slightly underwhelming. And I think for raids, like, you're still going to take chronos and stuff. So this might have a DPS role, but it's pretty unclear at this point, I think.
I think the Elite Spec overall doesn't give me the sense of excitement, I guess, that I would want out of other Elite Specs. But I still think it's a pretty decent spec in and of itself in terms of some of the traits. And I think Axe is pretty fun, too. Or like that 3 skill where you just dash through people and you just lay out on Condis. It's really fun.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, like Uncultured is saying that you can play the Shatter build with Mirage, and it stacks 1,000,000,000, 40 confusion up, and it's crazy. Yeah, and that's what I've heard as well. But again, my skill with Mesmer is the most lacking of all classes, and I'm just not super knowledgeable about it. I'm just giving very basic impressions.
Yeah, and that's what I was having fun with, was basically using the ambushes and shatters and stuff to reset it. But once again, yeah, this is coming from someone that's bare bones of Mesmer. Like this spec actually was like, okay, maybe I'll play my Mesmer a little bit more in POF. Like, at least that's what it did for me. But I don't know how well it resonated with already main Mesmers. But
as a world versus world roaming, as a world versus world roamer, this seems like a lot of fun to me personally.
It's gonna be really good in roaming. I think Condi builds will use Mirage, like QD said. I do think it's really good in terms of that. But yeah, I think it's a decent spec. Good for Condi. We'll see how it works out.
Let us move on and talk about the Renegade, which is the Revenant elite spec for POF. And they get short bow, and also, these even have a special name. I know they're just other, like I don't think they have a unique name to them.
I forgot the name. There is a name.
Oh, okay. There's actually like what the traits
for Renegade
utilities are called.
Utilities.
I forgot what it was.
Well, basically the way they work is
Kala's something.
Warband or
Kala's.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but I like the short bow. There's a lot of Condi on the short bow. It's got responsive skills. I like the pathing on 3. Like, I like the different projectile pathing on the 3 skill.
I do as well.
Kala's Fervor
is the buff. That's the unique buff she is. That's not what her utility skills are called.
But yeah, this is more of a PvE-oriented spec, mostly because the utilities are useful for giving out buffs in terms of like better bleeds or protection if you trait for it or things like that. For PvE, it really feels underwhelming just because the utilities can get easily CC'd, and that actually disrupts their abilities. And
yeah, I can't say I'm a huge fan of the utility skills being targetable entities.
Yeah, it just sadly I feel like if you want a PvP, you probably will want to bring Glint, just because I feel like the heal makes up for what you're missing in other elite specs. So for example, Power is Shiro Glint, Condi could be Malik's Glint, but here you don't have Glint anymore. So one, you lose shield, and you lose Glint heal, which I feel like is the most important part. But the Renegade heal is a small heal, and then you get healed over time, which if you get knocked out of it, it's not very helpful. So I feel like either they need to reduce the cooldowns on the utilities, they need to make the warriors themselves not targetable, and actually I heard that the AI will attack the Scourge's sand thingies, which are invulnerable in the first place. So that's kind of yeah. So they need to make the AI a little smarter in that end.
The other thing is, the ones that attack, do they just attack randomly?
I think they attack within their AoE circle.
Within their AoE, right?
Yeah. So
I think it chooses the closest. I might be wrong, but I think it chooses the closest target inside the AoE.
I'll have to check that, because if the one thing I've always seen is that anytime you summon something that attacks, any other game I've played that has that setup, is it will attack the thing you are attacking, so that you have actual tactical control over what you're doing.
Right.
Because
I don't know if it works that way or not.
Yeah.
Most of them are AoEs. It's only one or two that do that.
Yeah.
The one that doesn't.
I like the traits. I will say that I would like the trait setup, because for especially raids, it's going to be really good with the Calls for buff. And even if you do a support type of spec too, I think Renegade can work out well because of the protection you get with the warband thingy. You give, I think there's also a buff too that you can give out as well to allies.
You're a secondary source of alacrity. So.
Yeah, I don't know how much I really didn't use any of the F skills when I was testing because I felt like they cost a lot or they were a bit underwhelming. But that's the personal opinion.
Both.
Yeah.
Renegade is interesting. I think in PvP it's lacking for the reasons you guys have already said, basically. And it's very much a PvE spec for the most part in World vs. World. I think in World vs. World it's going to enhance what's already there. And in PvE, again, Condi is already the spec that Revenants play, and this is just going to make that spec even better. I think shortbow is a pretty good weapon, especially being it being generally medium range is something that Revenant was lacking.
And the trait for it is really good.
Yeah, yeah. So
go street races.
all the time. I don't understand. But I feel like their utility skills. See, Revenant is such a tricky class. For a long time, it never bothered me, right? But when we're getting further and further in, it's really starting to like, man, I wish I could change some of them around because you're generally going to pair in PvE. I think that you're generally going to pair it with Malix. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but you're generally going to pair it with Malix, and I don't know. Some of them are okay, but they're super expensive. Like the utilities are really energy costly. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the current Condi rotation is pretty tight as it is, I think. So I'm curious. I mean, obviously, people who are much better at buildcraft and figuring the rotations out will figure all that stuff out. But it'll be interesting to see how much of a difficult time they have changing up the rotation to include some of these things in there. For
PvE, I think it'll be a little bit more lenient because you're not getting bombarded with attacks from, like, let's say if you're in a World vs. World fight or a PvP fight, you have the time to actually get more energy by auto attacks, and then you could spend more of the skills. With Renegade, I feel like you just want to put down the vital warband people down as that you need, and then you just swap to your other legend until you get it back again.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be like put 2 or 3 down, swap back to your legend, swap back, use the other warbands that are not on cooldown, swap back, and then swap back again so you can get the cooldowns back on the other that you used the first time. That's how I feel like it'll work. I think it'll be good for fights like Deimos, where like you're that Ventari kiter, and you feel useless, so you could just chuck warband people in there, and you can give extra support and stuff like that. I think it'll be good for stuff like that.
So you're strengthening their one meta purpose in raids. Let's put it that way.
But then you're giving up Herald. I don't know.
You don't need Herald if you're kiting. You can use staff to block. You can use offhand sword to block. It's not a big deal.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on Renegade?
Buff it.
It's the only thing that doesn't do enough damage of these specs, from what I've heard.
Working as intended, as someone that played Revenant through hot. Let's move on to the Scourge. This is the Necro's Elite spec, and for their utilities, they get punishment skills, which basically work as kind of they can remove boons as a secondary effect and corrupt them into cripple and torment. So, how is the Scourge faring?
I didn't get to play it yet, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed a little bit of it. I kind of played it at the base level like real quickly, but you know, I thought it was interesting because you also get the barriers kind of thrown in there, so you kind of have you're kind of more supporty than any other of the Necro specs that we've seen.
I do like the fact that they mesmered it, and anything that you do that pulses off of your shades also pulses off of you. So I think that's a pretty good effect.
So Scourge, sorry about that.
Oh, go ahead.
I really like dropping Death Shroud. Actually, I like the sand minions. What are they called? Sand guys.
Sand shades,
fleas?
I think.
Sand shades. Yeah, I don't know. I really like the sand shades. I like how they work. There's a lot of barrier addition and support in general that Scourge gets. Torch feels really good. Torch seems like a good addition to Conti specs, and I think that it very well could have a place. I've seen some Necros playing in PvP, and it looks like they don't use a whole ton of the utilities, only a couple here and there, but I don't think that that's necessarily the worst thing either. I think in World vs. World it's going to have a place. I think it sort of enhances some of those aspects, some of the aspects that Necros have there. And Necro's already a very strong class in World vs. World. And in PvE, I think it's going to add to condition as well. So plus, 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 plus all around, really.
I'm foreseeing a bunker Necro holding far in PvP with the superpower, the super powerful one shade that they just leave up on the point, and they just 1v5 everybody that comes to them.
I'm probably going to do that. I'm not going to lie. First of all, I have to say, I always think of Enter Sandman when I think of Scourge. So just putting that out there. Also, if you zoom in on the sand shades, at the bottom on the floor, you see like bones and stuff. And then when you look up, it's like a person wailing. It's kind of creepy, but cool at the same time. But definitely zoom in if you haven't. I haven't played Scourge yet, but I've played against them, and do not try to take a point if they have all three sand shades on. You will eat a lot of condis, and I was surprised by how many I ate.
Well, you shouldn't be taking. Then that might be broken because you're not supposed to take effects from multiple shades.
I don't know if I don't know how they did it. I need to look into how they did it, but it's quite good at whole. I think it'll be, because like I said earlier, there's different types of setup you can do. You could do support, you do Condi, you do Corruptionmancer. So Corruptionmancer would be like the power spec, and I think that might be something a lot of people will run. Condi is also something that people will run because it's Condi, and Necromancer is really good at Condi. And support is kind of the interesting one because it's using a lot of barriers. And I've heard mixed things about barriers. Some people kind of want barriers to stay on over time and not let them decay. Some people think that the decay is too short, things like that.
Yeah, I feel like the decay is a little too short personally, but
yeah, I kind of agree with that. The decay on barrier it's a little too rapid
for all of them, like for all classes currently.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just the barrier mechanic across everything. I mean,
right,
I don't think there are any traits that modify that. I do think that it should be similar to how it works in Guild Wars 1 with the HP regen you got out of combat, I think. Is that it is a slow decay, and then it picks up speed as time goes on and you're out of combat.
Yeah. I feel like there's some interesting gameplay with using barrier at the right moment, especially for something like PvP, but I still feel like it decays a little too fast.
Yeah. I would say
so the decay happens in combat too. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I would say either not make it decay and reduce the barrier amount as to compensate, or just have the decay timer just have a longer duration before it starts decaying and make it decay less. You know, find that good balance that people will enjoy. But that's why I'm excited to bunker on Scourge.
Any final thoughts on Scourge? All right, let's move on to the Soulbeast. This is the Rangers Elite Spec for the next expansion, and it is going to utilize they get main hand dagger, and their utilities will be stances, and they also get beast mode. Which, what the heck is beast mode?
Huh.
That's also a song I think of. I think a Soulbeast. But yeah, I'll let Inks go first since you know.
So Soulbeast, beast mode in general is a lot of fun, and I think that they've done a pretty good job with pets, generally speaking. Even the new pets that you sort of get to play. There's some bugs. There's some serious bugs with Soulbeast in general right now. Like for example, Dolyak stance doesn't actually work. It doesn't give you the stability. And my initial impression was actually really strong, but the more that I'm looking at it and talking to other Ranger players, Soulbeast has a couple of problems. First of all, it's not quite as flashy as some of the other classes. So if you're looking for the flash, like Holosmith, you're not going to quite get the you're not going to quite get that same feel. It has a couple of cool things, but it lacks a little bit of the flash. Not really mechanically noteworthy. Dagger might be in PvE. Dagger might be better than Axe, although that's going to need testing. The offhand is probably still going to be Torch, but I've seen some people argue that Dagger might overtake it. Offhand Dagger might overtake it, but we'll see. And I think as a Condi spec, this is basically going to put Ranger back where Condi Ranger used to be, which when you think about it is disappointing, because they just nerfed Condi Ranger so that they can have an elite spec just replace Condi Ranger.
Do you know how I feel about acrobatics in Daredevil now?
I mean, it just like
it's exactly
you nerf Ranger, you nerf Condi Ranger so that you can have an elite spec replace Condi Ranger. What? And that's just one aspect of it. The other thing too is the utilities are all pretty terrible. The Vulture stance might have some play, maybe, but you're probably still better to Cringer, by the way. Yeah, Vulture stance might have some play, but you're probably still going to take Flame Trap over it as a Condi Ranger, as a Soulbeast, Condi Soulbeast, whatever. The first two, the Bear Heal, which is really just sort of a modified Troll Unguent, seems like it might be good for World vs. World, perhaps, because it removes conditions, and that's a big problem there. But the heal is very low, and the cooldown on these skills is very high. Your uptime is terrible. And Dolyak stance, which I got really excited for at first, because Rangers have a terrible time with stability. And the fact that you can share these things out with some of the traits seemed really great. But you get 6 stability for, I forget how long, 6 seconds or something like that. And then it has like, I forget what the cooldown is, 30 seconds or something. Your stability uptime is terrible. In a Zerg fight, you'll use it one time to provide 6 stability, and then never again for the rest of the fight, because the fight will be over by the time it comes off cooldown. So Guardians are still way better at doing this than you are, and you still won't really be welcomed. The positive side is you'll get rid of your pet, so you won't have to worry about that anymore, but it's not enough. Like utility-wise, they're just... Utility-wise for all of them, they just don't provide enough. Griffin stance has the possibility of being pretty decent with like a power build, perhaps. But again, the cooldown time is so terrible that...
Is there a stance?
I don't know.
Is there a stance trait in their trait line?
No, nothing that makes it better.
They don't have a 20% cooldown trait.
No. And the elite one is probably going to be used for both Condi and for power. I was talking with Roka quite a bit. I was watching him. He's really interested in Power Ranger, so there are some really great synergies with Sikkim, where Sikkim is about a 40% increase when you're in beast mode because it doubles up on you. It adds. And I know that I was talking with Card in Brazil in World vs. World. They were running around doing Longbow 2 rapid fire. They were rapid firing people to death with like the Sikkim build, and it's sort of like niche situations, right? But you can hit. But you can hit. You know, you can hit about a 17K maul on people with this. But if they evade it, if they interrupt you, if they block you, it's a gimmick, right? So in those competitive modes, it's very gimmicky. And if they close the gap, then I don't know. You know, I don't. The good news is in PvE that this could bring power up to maybe Condi Ranger level, making that more viable to play, and that could be more interesting to play. Right now, the Condi build, which is what I was really focusing on, seems a bit boring. Now, that doesn't bother me personally, because it will be about equal to where old Condi Ranger was, I think. Maybe a slight buff, maybe a tiny buff above that because of the way damage is. But there's just, besides beast mode, there just isn't a whole lot of interesting happening within Ranger. The utilities are generally speaking very lackluster. The uptime is terrible on most of them. The cooldowns are way too long, which goes into the uptime discussion. And Dagger main hand is okay, but even the auto attack
slow.
Yeah, the auto attack is a little bit slow. So yeah, I don't know. It needs a little bit of work, not just in numbers, but some of it is a number balancing thing. Like they can make stances better by playing with cooldown and numbers, right? But it's going to need a lot of work. Like how much stability do you really want to provide at any given time? Do you want it to be as good as Guardian? Probably not. And so therefore, is it ever going to be really that viable? I don't know. It's overall, it's not the most exciting of classes. Now that all sounds super duper negative.
Which we're used to from you.
They're just saying Power Soulbeast won't hit 24K. I don't know about that. I think that power might surprise some people. The silver lining to some of these things is that some of the pet interactions are rather fun. They're rather interesting. The Iboga pet, which is just a new pet and not necessarily tied to Soulbeast, can pull people in World vs. World off the walls.
That's so good.
So that's nice to have. It's got a 1200 range pull. I think it's 1200 range. So it's got a 1200 range pull, which is really exciting for Rangers in general. Dealing with people on walls has always been sort of a headache in some aspect. So that's kind of nice. The other skills for Iboga are a bit underwhelming, but you know, it has a place. And then some of the pet skills are really fun. For example, soul beasting with steam pet, smoke scale. Jeez, my brain. It makes you sort of like a mini Revenant for a couple of seconds because it lets you jump around and teleport around and stuff. So that's kind of fun. Bristleback merge is really good. There was an odd one with I was going to call it Panther, but it's not Panther. It's Stalker. Stalker is usually a ferocity pet, a ferocious pet, but they changed it. It's not. The F2 still does that, but when you merge with it, that one's a little bit weird. But otherwise, I don't know. The Soulbeast is fun. I think it needs some work, not just in numbers, but in utilities and traits and stuff. The other thing too is the traits itself are a little bit underwhelming as well. There's like one or two viable build possibilities, and then some of the build possibilities that you might have been hoping for, like sharing these things out, seems kind of underwhelming. Yeah. So it needs some work, I think.
Mm-hmm. Any other? Good.
Well, I did play it earlier today. First of all, I screwed up and not did my first two trait lines properly, so I was dying like crazy. But after I did that, I went in and I did fairly well. I ran double dagger with a great sword, and it was a power spec. I felt like I did more work with the great sword than the double daggers. The double daggers did give me some quickness, so I always swapped to it every now and then. I'm going to agree with Inks on the stances. Bear is useful with the condition stuff, but otherwise the rest kind of feel underwhelming. The traits are kind of so-so. There are some that seem potentially good. Like there's one that if you go down Will in Beast mode, you'll actually just get a heal instead, but the heal is just so low that it doesn't really matter. If you get hit again, you're just going to die. So there's other than that, there's not that good strong picks, I guess, in the utility department, in this trait department. Sorry, some for Condi as well. Beast mode itself is really fun. I really like it. I also like the new pets as well. The cheetah, I just don't accept that it's cheetah because it looks not
Doesn't look
like
anything
a
like a cheetah.
But
It's funny because they purposely said sand lion so that it didn't have to look like a big lion.
right.
But then they just said cheetah, and it looks like ice cheetah or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah, if you said like shadow
looking,
cheetah,
but
exactly. It
Well,
looks
they can't call it Suicune, or Nintendo will sue them.
Yeah.
right. Well,
That's fair. But yeah, I think the new pets are kind of cool. They each have some different type of utility, which kind of just goes across the board, which is nice.
Plant Guy is weird, right? Because I don't know his name. I'm sorry, guys. The names are not stuck in my head yet. No, the Aboga is the
Jar.
snake.
I can't.
Oh.
John Candy pet is interesting because it can give out, resistance and a heal, but then it has this odd lightning attack that doesn't seem to fit. I don't know.
It does. In Nightfall, it does do that. So
The Jacaranda.
there you go, Jacaranda.
I'm calling it John Candy.
But yeah, also I found that I did a build which is kind of weird. It's a power build that focuses on giving ferocity and protection because my heal wasn't that great because of the cooldown, so I had to mitigate damage somehow. I felt like I did okay. I did it mostly in the arena, so I did pretty much okay versus like other things, but I still think it could use a bit of work. The utilities, I don't know about the bugs on Bill yet because I swapped that out, but fix the bugs on that. Lower the cooldown, I would say to at least 25, or have a trait that lowers it.
It still makes it pointless. You give yourself whatever it is, 6 seconds of 6 stacks or whatever. Time is terrible. But anyway, there's a bug too with the Gazelle where it just will continue to do damage and run people over. It's not supposed to do that much damage. But right now it hits for like 30k.
Sounds like a
I saw
perfect.
50k.
It's like a fiery greatsword. So just in case some people might get overexcited for that pet, it's not going to stay that way. Still a fun pet.
Mm-hmm.
I will say for Soulbeast, I will play it. I'll probably play it because I don't have to use a pet, which is kind of what drew me away from Ranger. But yeah,
Awesome.
I guess I'm the only one who likes using a pet.
Well, I like the interaction. I like the possibility, I should say, of the interaction between pet and non-pet. It depends on the mode too, right? But you're going to be able to use an ability, enter beast mode, enter beast mode, or enter beast mode, exit, use an ability, swap pets, use an ability, go beast mode. Like, you're going to be able to swap like that, right? Which is kind of interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of kind of weaving the pet back and forth like they kind of recommended, because they are on separate cooldowns. Like, you could use the pet's abilities and then, go into beast mode and kind of reuse them in that different.
Yeah, beast mode's on a 10-second cooldown.
The only question I have is your pet's HP. Does it heal while you've absorbed it, or does it come back out with the same HP?
Comes back out at full.
Okay.
Any final thoughts on the Soulbeast? Like I said, it would be fun to weave the pet.
Oh my god.
No, you can't do that. We're still in the same topic.
That's fine because I'm gonna break it up. Oh, it was a curveball transition because the Spellbreaker is next.
Oh.
Why do I do this show with you?
Oh my god.
The Spellbreaker is the Warrior Elite Specialization, and it is going to have dual daggers and also meditation skills. And the main thing is full counter, which is kind of pretty. From what I've seen from people talking about it, it seems pretty insane. Which seems like the running theme with a lot of these, but.
I'm wondering if all of their bursts will only ever count as tier 2 bursts, since they only have 2 adrenaline bars, and they just made that change to berserkers.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I was playing a little bit before, but I like Spellbreaker is pretty good. Pretty good.
They count as tier 1 bursts, even though they have 2 bars of adrenaline. Oh, okay.
First can only use 1 bar of adrenaline. Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
Okay, that's nifty. I guess that makes that makes things a little better for them, that they can use a lot of the traits that affect your maintaining adrenaline levels, since they're only ever going to use 1 at a time. But the no fun zone, I think I'm going to hate a lot of.
Oh yeah.
Because I am going to need to play as Weaver if I play my Elementalist in PvP in this upcoming season, because almost all of an Elementalist's attacks outside of sword at this point are projectiles. And I'm just going to see that bubble go up, and I'm just going to be like, nope, screw that point, going somewhere else.
I was thinking about how viable the bubble would be. So basically, it's on point, so it'll be really good for PvP. For World versus World, don't think it'll be useful unless it's like a Zerg fight that's in progress, and then you put it down.
Right. Yeah.
It would be useful for. It would be defending a Keep Lord.
Or Keep Lords, yeah.
Yeah.
You put that on top of the tower that you're at. I mean, can you imagine using it?
It also makes the enemy Zerg move out of it, right? As soon as it goes down, the commander will pull them out of it, or try to.
Not to mention, it stays up for a pretty good time, and it's a projectile blocker. So,
and if you time it well, like if you're able to time it with more than 1, dropping several of them can really can do some serious damage in World vs. World, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. It has to be used properly. Yeah.
I think it'd be really good. Spellbreaker is just going to be really good with all the boon ripping it does. And because everyone has boons. Everyone.
Yeah.
And Spellbreaker can do damage while boon ripping. So, and on top of that, it does extra damage. And Double Daggers actually has a good combo that does quite a bit of damage as well. In addition to that, you can actually run Hammer again, because when you CC, you actually remove boons as well. So it's a really good power spec. It's just.
I only tried this out on golems in the lobby, which I gotta say, this demo weekend in the lobby was terrible. I mean, I mean, luckily I was playing until 1 or 2 a.m. my time, so people eventually went to bed, and then I could play. But what a terrible idea! I'm sorry, but it just was. And but if you were like me and you only played this on golems, I don't think you'll appreciate Spellbreaker very much. You really need to play against other people in PvP matches or in World vs. World, I think, to really sort of appreciate it.
Yeah. I love the counter.
Now, I have to wonder, what is it? The heal cleanses you of all boons and all conditions. I wonder
7
if
boons. 7 boons, 7 conditions. Yeah.
okay. I wonder if that boon strip counts as boon strip for the effective traits.
I don't know.
Or other abilities. Like when you remove a boon from yourself, does it count as a
Oh,
boon
I don't
strip for your
think so.
trait?
No.
Oh,
I
that'd be
don't.
nice.
I don't think so because when I used that heal, I did not like take extra damage. So
Right. Well, no, I was figuring if there were like benefit. I can't remember any warrior traits that strip boon, any other warrior stuff that strip boons, but I'm wondering if like when you strip a boon from an enemy, you gain something, and it's just one of those things that I was curious about.
oh, maybe I didn't really look into that. Huh? Might be a thing.
So that was just something I was curious about. But yeah, I'm gonna have to make another warrior if I want to play Spellbreaker. I can't play a Norn with dual daggers.
Why not? That's what they're advertising.
No. Dagger
Kind
models
of-
are
kind
too
of as
small
a-
in this game.
Kind of as a quick aside, how do you feel about the icon? Like they went this time. I guess it's true they did that last time as well. I never really noticed that much. Never mind. Never mind. Ignore what I just said.
No.
I don't know. Norn with dual dagger. That's awesome. Big burly
I
guy
also like
gets-
the traits. I just pictured that. I like the traits as well. There's a lot of different ways you could go about it. It's mostly power oriented, but you could spec for your counter, you could spec for boon ripping, and spec for damage. I believe it was. So a lot of good options.
Mm-hmm. Any final thoughts on the Spellbreaker? All right. Well, oh, go ahead.
Nope, I'm good.
Well, last up we have it's certainly not least, the Weaver. This is the Elementalist Elite Spec.
Wow.
Yeah, we're done with them.
Yeah.
All right, so Weaver was great. That's it for the show. Everybody, hey.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. The LDR. It's holy crap. But yeah, there is a dual attack mechanic, and also how the Weaver sounds like what it is. You can now weave attunements, so you can have 2 attunements at a time, which basically the first one is going to be your main hand, and the second one is going to be your offhand, and then that dual attack is kind of the melding of the two. So, and they also use stances as well, so as their utility skills. So, thoughts on the Weaver?
A+ would play again.
Oh yeah.
I need somebody far more build crafty intelligent to tell me what the hell to do, to be quite honest.
Oh no, Mantas, this will be everywhere, much like most Elementalist specs. This is what Elementalists needed to actually be able to do damage in PvP.
Okay.
There are evades, there are heals, there's barrier. It's just going to be one of those things where it's like you have to pay attention to where you're going and where you've been with all of your attunement swapping.
You have good damage?
Even more so.
Even if it's not good, like I don't know about, like it feels like it's good damage, but even if it's not good damage, there's a lot of CC and control to put out that damage. So
Okay.
Every weapon, it's funny too because it's unique in the sense that every weapon gets extra skills now. So,
and I was definitely off on my calculations of the last time we were talking about this, is because the skill 3 is tied to the main hand solely. So
right.
Oh, okay.
it's not different based on your offhand. It's solely based on the main hand weapon.
Oh, so you have 7 times 4 is 28 skills?
Like 28 or 30 skills, somewhere around there, yeah. Just
Okay.
for the new dual skills. So, and it really is a crazy amount of stuff to rotate through. And I can't wait to try and figure out where I'm going to go with it.
I think too, like So for PvE, that stuff will be figured out for you, and you can practice and get better at it, and so on. For PvP, it'll be interesting because you'll really need to know exactly where the skill you want is when you need it, and then not be me and press the wrong buttons at the wrong time, and then be in totally the most awkward situation you can imagine for PvP.
Yep.
But that's sort of the fun of it, right? That's sort of the fun of that spec in general.
Mm. Yeah, the way I see it is, I think, what was it? I think it was Fable 3, where you have one gauntlet could be one spell, and the other gauntlet could be a different spell. You're basically doing that, even more so, and the multiplayer is actually playable in this game.
I think that the animations look great on all the weapons and the skills that they did. The icon art, for whatever reason, I always liked their icon art, but it feels really smooth to play. Feels fun to play. It didn't feel like I was being stuck in any kind of combination or something with nothing to do. So, I mean, I guess that's a plus for the class.
What are the traits like?
Well, I was gonna say, I think it's important to note when you're in, like, with some of the other trait lines. I think when it's like, I know the fire one is like, when you're in fire attunement, any attack you use will give you might. I think that applies to the primary only, like your main hand one.
Okay.
So if you have in the offhand, I don't think it then counts. But if it's part of your main hand, I think no matter what the other element is, it will count towards it.
The traits, I need to go back through them. Because I didn't spend a lot of time on Weaver, because I know I'm just going to play it whenever it comes out live a lot. Because I'm going to be going between that and Firebrand. Just because my Guardian and my Elementalist are the two I play. But I know the bottom line is the defensive line. And the dual attacks, I think the sword trait is the one that gives you dual attacks, give barrier. And it also gives you vitality. And there's also a trait that converts vitality into other stats.
Okay.
So
yeah,
they've got.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
you gained increased vitality when wielding a sword, and gained bonus vitality based on a portion of your power and condition damage, which is a major adept.
Yeah.
Pretty decent.
Yeah, they actually have options for vitality, which, considering they have they're the low HP class for the light armor professions, that's a good thing. And that's kind of the thing that's really prevented Elementalists from really getting into the thick of things with combat in PvP, is you kind of have to sit on the fringes of a fight and support, because you don't really have good high damage options. And there's some cheesy Scepter stuff that's been coming out since the changes to Scepter, but
Okay. And utilities are good too?
The Condi Pulse one I like. Unravel is good, because if you absolutely positively need to use just one element at a time, it's really nice to have. I can't say much for the other utilities, but the Elite looks really fun to mess with. And I think it has a unique particle effect that swirls around the Elementalist, so that you know they're actually working up to perfect weave. So you have that warning that if you let them actually rotate through all of the elements, you're probably going to get screwed.
Okay.
The icon changes as well when you've done it, when you've successfully.
It's a flip skill.
Yeah, the Elite is pretty strong.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, it's basically, the Elite is, you basically have reduced recharge during this time, reduce recharge on the your attunements, and basically you gain like a little buff for each one you swap through, and if you swap through all four of them, you basically get this thing called perfect weave, and you basically have a lot of stats coming your way for a little bit of time.
And then you can drop it and basically do a mini Chronomancer gravity well in front of you, which apparently does a crap ton of damage. So there's that. And I think the recharge on your attunements is something like 2 seconds if you trait Arcane as well as using Perfect Weave.
Nice.
So
That is insane. But yeah, I mean, and I think they even say it on Guild Chat while they had what 2 or 3 devs working between 8 of the professions. They basically had one person working on the Elementalist. Now they, because I remember them talking about names and what ones go with what, so they do work together, but primarily I think they just had one dev working on the ins and outs of the Elementalist, the Weaver.
Well, and apparently it was in development for a while, longer than some of the others.
Yeah, because I think they even said that it was one thing they wanted to try to do for Hot, but it just didn't seem right.
Yeah.
Like they mentioned Heart of Thorns and stuff, so. But
so this has effectively been sitting in their developers' hands for 2 years.
Yeah,
I think that's probably fair to say. Yeah. And for Ranger, for everything that I had said, a lot of development work went into Soulbeast as well, just to make it technically work. So there's that as well.
Any final thoughts on the Weaver?
Can't wait till it hits live.
Yes.
Can't wait to try it. Yeah.
So overall thoughts on the Elite Specializations and the weekend so far? The preview.
It's pretty cool. Like I like the concept. This is what I had hoped for when they started talking about Elite Specs. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these change the game.
Some Elite Specs are a little overtuned. All the Elite Specs, with the exception of Renegade, are overtuned, so they'll need to be balanced a little bit. But other than that, I think they're a lot of fun to play. They each have different mechanics that are very interesting. Some things need to be balanced out in terms of traits and stuff, but yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy.
I don't know if it's a I don't know if it's a technical limitation for the way that they did this, for the way that they decided to do this weekend, on why they didn't allow us to play these Elite Specs with the Crystal Oasis demo map, or perhaps even more importantly, with a sectioned off DPS Golem in PvE. And I say this with the most respect I can possibly muster. I'm grateful to have this weekend. I think this weekend is extremely important for feedback and constructive criticism on the classes and the Elite Specs. Numbers are going to change, obviously, so I'm not so worried and focused about that sort of aspect of it. But the remade PvE lobby is terrible for this event. PvP lobby is terrible for this event. There's not nearly enough golems to go around. There is 1 or 2 indestructibles, 1, that everybody is fighting on at all times, so you can't tell how many of the conditions are yours alone, or it's kind of difficult to. And it's kind of just a pain in the butt to really get a feel for how effective the class is or is not. Kate says too. Anyway.
I don't believe her.
And you can take it into World vs. World, but unfortunately, yesterday was reset night. So depending on what world you are on, getting in may or may not have been possible or easy for you. And even then, you're playing on a live World vs. World server, testing I don't know. I don't love the entire environment that they chose to go with for that. The other thing is, again, I don't know if this is a technical issue. If this is all technical stuff, then it is, and there's nothing, whatever. This is just my criticism on it. They should have given us stat swappable weapons. be it legendary armor or weapons or whatever the case is, because the way in which they did this, it's just annoying and fiddly to go in and choose the different boxes and crap that they gave you for World vs. World. And I think a lot of people probably stayed in PvP because of that. I just think that there's things they could have done to sort of improve the weekend a little bit. And I think that those are all things that they should maybe look at next time they decide to do something like this is all.
Yeah,
Or just
I agree with that.
Just have a separate instance, like just have like the DPS testing area.
Yeah. For the armor, I think they should just have a box that gives the World vs. World Ascended armor, since you're taking it away anyways. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't give it to them.
Right.
And, you know, maybe have the vendors sell trinkets at like a no price so that, you know, you could toy around with them, or just give us Ascended trinkets to toy with. I fortunately put all my legendary gear in my bank before the patch so that I can get my gear on the demo character. So
Cheater.
But that's only like, and some people will be very fortunate to have multiple sets of legendary armor for multiple weights. Like I could do medium, but then I don't have anything for the light or heavy class. You know what I mean?
But,
like it's just.
Yeah. For me, it's okay because I only play Thief in World vs. World, so it doesn't matter.
Right,
So,
right.
But I understand that I would have loved to actually run around with like Spellbreaker, but
Like I said, I waited to very early in the morning my time to really get a better appreciation for the classes, their skill effects, what they can do, and all that kind of stuff. Because playing in the middle of the day or at regular normal times, there's a million spell effects going off, and everybody's doing their thing, and there's 7 people hitting the same golem you're trying to hit, or kill the same Svanir that you're trying to kill. And at one point, at one point, I got to an indestructible golem. There was a line. There was a line up the steps and like around the one corner of people like waiting their turn. Like I'm surprised because early in the day everybody was just free for all, and eventually somehow they convinced each other to stand in a line to have turns at the indestructible golem for a few minutes.
That just sounds horrible.
And the guy would run off, and the next guy would come up, and he'd do it. I just was watching for a couple of minutes, and I'm like,
yeah.
You're like recording, like I'm gonna make this my screensaver.
I should have recorded. I should have, but I didn't. It was hilarious.
But earlier in chat, the question was raised, and I think it's definitely a good one. With more specs coming out, now it feels like classes are losing their identity due to ANet giving their specific skills to others, and we've seen that. You know, warriors are getting meditations, so are, you know, guardians. You know, which was kind of a Mesmer thing, and you know, so on and so forth. But your guys' thoughts? Is this good, bad?
I don't think it's bad. I mean, for example, Mirage gets deception skills, and I have on Thief. Thief was the original class that had deception skills, but they feel so different. They feel like themed to that class, so it doesn't really feel that impactful at all. I mean, stances are shared across Weaver, Soulbeast, and Base Warrior now. But
Yes.
they all have that. They all have their theme tied to their class. I feel like it still gives them their own uniqueness.
But it's one of those things where the issue I have with it's very similar to I've compared it before that I feel like elite specs are like prestige classes from Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 edition. But I think it's more getting to a point where if you run 3 core specialization lines, I feel like you're kind of pulling a jack of all trades kind of thing with any given profession that you're doing. And the elite specs are more of a focus in a field that a given profession can do. So Guardian, for instance. Base Guardian has burns, has decent damage in it's slower, but you hammer auto attack, you can lay down some decent damage over time with that, and you've got a lot of protective abilities. Dragon Hunter, let's just up the ante on damage control, or on damage. And that's what Dragon Hunter did. Firebrand, let's amp the hell out of condition damage. Okay, you've got that. And it's not so much that I don't think, let's see here. I don't think a Firebrand feels like a Condi. I don't feel like a Firebrand feels like a Sword Torch warrior. They're both melee heavy armor characters that are doing primarily condition damage, but they feel completely different. One, the visuals are different. I mean, if I'm going to be throwing max Condi with my Firebrand, I'm going to have to whip out the Tome, and that looks way different than anything a Berserker is ever going to do. I'm not going to be throwing out the Primal Burst skills constantly. The animations are completely different, and honestly, the Warrior has a lot more conditions than I have access to be fair. But it's one of those things where if you boil it down to melee heavy armor class that does Condi damage, you could say that the Revenant, the Warrior, and the Guardian are all the same thing, and there is no class identity there. But it's really like, how granular are you going to make it? If you take the 30,000 foot view, everything looks the same. You're a class that's doing damage. So I don't think we're really losing identity in any way, shape, or form by all the elite specs getting added, by the different names of the skills. Like, a skill is a skill. People don't complain about signets being everywhere. Except Angst in his faux rage.
They stole my signets.
So
it's an interesting topic, right? And I think in some levels, rather than losing identity, I prefer, I guess this is a perception thing, I prefer to look at it like in Guild Wars 1, you were able to multi-class. Now, Guild Wars 2 doesn't have multi-classing, and I've seen some people say, I want a multi-class, I want to be that just wouldn't really work in Guild Wars 2. But with Elite Specializations, on some small level, they can give you some of that multi-classing by sort of mixing what other classes do. I do think it's important that if a class had a particular identity to begin with, that class should retain the strongest of that identity and not necessarily let some other class overpower it in a particular area. But coming up with unique buffs and modifiers and such constantly becomes very difficult, number one. And number two, it's a balancing nightmare, because if Grace of the Land is stronger than other buffs, then you will always take the thing with the Grace of the Land. But if you start sharing Grace of the Land around, not that I think they will, but or something similar to it, then you open the possibility for someone else to fulfill that role than that class. Balancing is such a hard, tricky, difficult monster. And the more of these unique buffs and modifiers that you add to the game, the worse that gets. But without adding new shiny things, then it doesn't attract people to the game and the class either, right? So these guys have an incredibly difficult job. I don't envy them. I can't say that I fully understand the ins and outs of every single class, because I obviously don't. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, deep, difficult discussion, I think, to have.
Yeah, I like how Ing said it. It's basically their way of kind of doing the multi-class system that they had in Guild Wars 1 at a smaller level, but kind of like I've heard some people saying, like the Mirage, it's like you're blipping around kind of like a thief, and I even think they even say that a little bit in guild chat, like you're more thief-like, of like kind of stepping towards people like in and out, but it has that Mesmer quality of you're also leaving a clone that like you can shatter and stuff. So yeah, you can multi-class, but they're distinctive like it's like here's a build that you can multi-class with, kind of a thing. It's not Build Wars, unfortunately, but it's, I think, great nod to it. Without, like Ink said, it being a nightmare of balancing, like, they said. And I think the other reason they kind of say, these people, this elite spec is going to get stances or, meditations, is probably just because that way old runes can still be utilized. Because if it's like, here's a completely new type of skill, it's like, well, you can't use the ones that are, are perfect for like the Mesmer or whatever or something like that. Like, it starts to get a little bit muddied, and we're gonna have just more and more items.
Well, so new weapons are interesting, right? Like a weapon that doesn't exist already. I think the reason that we haven't seen new weapons yet is from a design perspective.
Does everybody get the new weapon? Like,
Right.
that's the question.
So how many new weapons are they going to make? 9 new weapons? 4 new weapons? And then sort of share. I mean, so with POF, like, they did a lot of doubling up on a number of the weapons, right? So like that could be something that they do in the future, perhaps. But then think about how many of those types of weapons exist. So let's say they go with 4 new weapons, and they sort of double up for most classes, and then one class isn't going to get a new weapon, which will really piss them off. Let's just ignore that for a second and say that there's 4 new weapons. There's, I don't know, Javelin, Great Axe. What's another weapon?
Crossbow. I don't know.
Hammer already exists, Age.
Crossbow. Anyway, whatever. I'm making up fake weapons. But now you need to make weapon skins for all of these, right? So how many weapon skins do you think are added with Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire? I don't know the number off the top of my head, but you're going to need to add new weapon skins for the existing weapons and the 4 new weapons that you create. Let's just make it smaller. Let's just say you add 2 weapons and you sort of triple up on some of them, right? You still need to create skins for those 2 weapons on the multiple sets. And every new Black Lion set coming up will have to include an extra weapon or 2 weapons there as well. That might not seem like such...
Do they go back and add that weapon to old Black Lion weapon sets?
No, they wouldn't.
But it's something that people would complain about.
It's kind of like removing underwater weapons from Black Lion sets, right? I'm not saying that there isn't room for it. I'm not saying that they couldn't do it. I'm just saying that when they do go to do something like that, it's only going to be like 1 weapon, maybe 2 weapons at most. And even then, you're going to have a very, very small skin selection to choose from for quite a long time. And that's not me saying like they shouldn't do it. It's just saying like one of the reasons you haven't seen it yet. I think that those are all very strong points against it.
And Ida brings up a good point, is and a legendary.
Which won't come up for a long time because
we still don't have Heart of Thorns.
Heart of Thorns weapons need to come out.
So it's, and going back to the class thing, I think it's more, and Speed 1904 brought up a good point, is it would be nice to have a viable build for everybody, and I think for each profession, for each role. And I think we're getting to that point with Elite Specializations, where basically you start and you're like, I want to play a Sylvari engineer. Okay, you've got an engineer, now you want to either pick the style of how you play, and then you're like, oh, this build does that, and you play that build. And you want to switch to, from whatever that was, to Condi DPS, and you can do that. You have to completely change your build, but you can do that. But you still like playing engineer. So I think that's more what they're getting us towards with the Elite Specs, is they're not looking for everybody having everything. They're looking for each profession to have something to do in each game mode.
Yeah.
So it's like, Age, I've complained multiple times that the only thing you see with a thief is dagger, pistol, short bow, back capping, +1ing fights, and decapping. And that's all you're going to see a thief do. Mm-hmm. It's boring. I want thieves.
Wait, how does POF change any of that?
No, I don't think so.
No. Deadeyes are now the anti-roamer. Deadeyes are now the anti-thief.
Yeah, we're pretty much like just backline killing people or just shooting from range with like rifle or stuff. But we're still doing the backcapping probably, unless we get rid of short bow, which I don't see happening.
Short bow's too strong. Still,
I will say this as
another conversation.
A super duper extra nitpicky thing is I wish they would have not doubled up on so many weapons this time. Like warrior gets double dagger, ranger gets dagger. You know,
well, it's going to get to a point. It's going to get to a point where, like, what are you going to do? Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, but I understand that, but there's still lots of, like, right now, there's still lots of choices.
What's that?
I do like that rifle and short bow, which were generally underutilized, get to see some more play now because they're being put in specs that will utilize them a lot more. So that's a nice thing. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's a super nitpicky thing. But
yeah, I mean, you know, that could be a argument we talk about all day, but for the sake of time, I mean,
or even in
when
the
we do an
after
after show, yeah, we can talk more about it in the after show, or if you guys want to talk about it on YouTube, you know, we'll talk about it in the comments and stuff like that. But next up, we have this past week a small follow-up patch. Basically, just little tweaks here and there from the balance patch and stuff like that. But also, they removed Path of Fire drops from non-Path of Fire content. Whoopsie. Fixed a bug in which anomaly fragments could be absorbed by the legendary anomaly at long range if they were stunned immediately after spawning. They also enabled access to Captain Ellen Keel's office so players can complete tasks required by the Dreamer and Quip legendary collections, so that's nice. And then a couple of, like, things for Guardian. I know they, like, Sword of Justice fixed a bug. Hammer Wisdom, Shield of... Basically, they helped out the summoned weapon. Well, they're not summoned weapons. They're spear weapons.
Literally every hotfix since this patch dropped has buffed my build because I started using hammer and sword.
Nice. Yeah, they definitely helped out the spear weapon stuff, especially since they changed it over to the ammo system. Also, with the Ranger, you got Instinctive Reaction, Taste for Danger, fixed a bug with pets that caused a delay in readiness upon pet swap or entering a world. Ancient Seeds fixed a bug that listed damage from this trait as Jacaranda's Embrace. So, has that helped out Rangers any, Inks, or
the which one?
Any of these little tweaks? And
I've heard the pet readiness one was a big problem before it got fixed.
Oh, well, there was a problem where you swap pets and they didn't actually do anything for a few seconds, which is...
Yeah, they just stand there.
Anyway.
So, definitely seems like it helped. Elementalist Wildfire fixed a bug that caused this skill to inflict lower duration burning than expected. So, definitely sounds nice. Thief, Swindler's Equilibrium fixed a bug that could cause this trait to go on cooldown even if it did not recharge steel. So,
yeah,
definitely sounds nice.
Yeah, because basically that trait would trigger even if your steel was up, so you wouldn't get value out of it. But maybe they read my tweet or heard my complaints, but they fixed it, so that's good.
Well, they had to get it out of the way because PvP Season 8 starts soon. And by soon, I mean next Tuesday, August 22nd. So, and the funny thing is, they put out a blog post. It really didn't say too much. It, like, usually every other season kind of had, like, kind of big sweeping changes. Is my question to you guys is the SPVP season tournaments, or not tournaments, but are these seasons in a good place that they don't need any big sweeping changes?
The changes to the PvP armor makes it more desirable to play PvP right now. So I think you're going to see a lot of people play this season more so than usual. Other than that, there's going to be a month before Path of Fire comes out, and then everyone will be playing Elite Specs in there. I don't think they'll prevent people. I don't know if they'll actually prevent people from playing with the new Elite Specs for a week or anything like that, like other PvP games do. But I don't think they have the tech for that. But yeah, that's gonna throw a whole ball field of balance changes in there. So it'll be very interesting to see how things go.
Yeah, I think it was so light because it's coming, right? The season's going to be active when POF launches.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be plenty of time for balance, and it's going to happen mid-season. Should be an interesting season.
That worries me. That really does worry me.
Yeah, because then someone's going to be hiding that OP build, and then people are going to figure it out, and then people are going to run it, and then we're going to have to wait a while until they actually fix it. Which can see. And yeah, there was some lag in PvP matches at Ada, so because of the demo. But it's a small thing.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't say there's really anything to complain about there since it's off season.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right now season doesn't even start until Tuesday, right?
Yeah. So, and anything that's like serious PvP, it's not happening right now. So,
Very true. Any final thoughts on the PvP Season 8? I mean, really the only news that we got from it was that it was starting Tuesday. I mean, didn't seem like there was any changes going to occur.
Yeah, less downtime, which I guess it depends how you feel, but a good thing generally speaking.
yeah.
So positive there. I kind of think, I know we need to move on, but I kind of think seasons should be longer than they are currently. The less downtime between seasons is great, but I think the season itself should be longer.
Yes, please.
But that's about it. Okay.
Well, if you are in the party mood and going to PAX West, or if you're just in the general Seattle area, what? On September 1st, Guild Wars ArenaNet is holding their Guild Wars 2 5th anniversary party. They put a post on the forums. Basically, they want you to private message Gail Gray with the information of your first and last name, the first and last name of a guest. If you are not bringing a guest, please tell her that. Your contact email address for verification. So you do have to kind of, say that you're going type thing, and you just can't walk up to it. Oh, go ahead.
You could still go as a guest. You're just not on the VIP list. That's all.
Okay.
The VIP list.
But you want to be on the VIP list? Come on.
Of course. I wish I was going so I could just say I was on the VIP list.
There you go.
You could actually pull the "Don't you know who I am?"
Oh.
Yeah. Can I have your name? Don't you know who I am?
The party will be at the Hard Rock Cafe in Seattle from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. They say please request a VIP guest list spot only if you are able to and plan to attend the party. You do not need a PAX pass to attend, and a minor may attend if accompanied by an adult. All confirmations will be sent via PMs, and guests will be randomly selected from those who request a VIP spot. So, if you are in the area, that'd definitely be cool. Go talk to the devs, chit chat, rub elbows, all that fun stuff. But
yeah, it's I went to the one at PAX East a couple years ago, and really fun time, really good chance to meet the devs and just other equally, other people in the community and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wish I was going.
Yeah.
And they have one at Gamescom as well, which is just around the corner.
Yeah, and kind of like what Inks was hinting at, there are only so many devs there, which if there's a lot of people, they can't really meet everybody. But like he said, you are going to a party that you pretty much are pretty sure everybody there plays Guild Wars 2, so you got something in common. So yeah, definitely will be
you
awesome
done got
experience.
something to talk about.
Yeah.
What server are you on? Blackgate. This is war.
Okay,
Right,
well,
found
don't
the
start a
WW
fight.
players. Yeah,
Oh,
and if
boy.
somebody leads with what server are you on, it's like, you're a WW player, aren't you?
Yeah, the other person replies back, that doesn't really matter anymore, does it? But yeah, so definitely check that out. And last up, we have gem store stuff, and always thank you to Dolphin.net. Check out Dolphin.net so you can spend your gems more wisely. But first up, they put in the gem store the Season 1 memory box. So you can get, well, I think the offer's still there. You can get one for free on your account the first time, but then from then on, it is 1 for 200 gems and 10 for 1,500 gems. And this gives you access to Living World Season 1 rewards, kind of like the Molten Jetpack skin, which has crashed. I think it's now sitting at around like 500-ish gold. You can get like the Monocle, Scarlet's Kiss, different things like that. You can also get like the potions from the Battle of Lion's Arch that give you like the halo and the horns, and also materials if you need to get that the bladed back piece. There's materials that you can buy from there, or you can get from there randomly. But also the interesting thing out of there is you also can get, I think they're called commemorative sprockets, which are basically a currency. And I've heard like reports of like you can get from one box 1 sprocket, or up to like I've heard people get like 60 or 70. I don't know if there's been counts of more in one go, but those, you click on those and they'll open up a vendor, which you can see kind of on the right there, and you can use these sprocket currencies to buy these things straight out in game.
Supposedly, and again, this is supposed, but if you unlock or get a miniature that you already have, or an item that is already unlocked on your account, let's say the Monocle or the Desert Rose or something, then you're supposed to get sprockets for that instead.
Yeah, I think because I got a few minis that I already had, so I just hit the use button, and I think I got sprockets for that. Because
Now,
I
You may not, and if not, you need to submit a ticket to customer service. But you're supposed to get sprockets instead for that. Yeah, tempting for me, because there's about 1,800 gold worth of things I don't have unlocked here, and it's tempting. Let's just say I didn't buy any, but.
Yeah, I mean the Molten Jetpack, I think for those commemorative sprockets is what, 100 sprockets, which you can you can get incredibly lucky and get it out of like 2 or 3, or it might take a couple more. But that was, up until this point, that was hard to get. That thing was going for like, I want to say
6,000 or
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Thousands of gold.
Yeah, now it's 500 gold or so.
Yeah. I bought 20 boxes just to see, and I think I got value out of it because I did get enough sprockets to get the Molten Jetpack, and I got Scarlet's Kiss as well, and that's equivalent to like 700, 750 gold, which if you convert gems to gold, that's 3,000 gold, so that's like roughly around the same amount, plus I got extra stuff out of it, so I think I got value, or I just broke even in that respect. So
I know a lot of people who got lucky, like on their one chest or opened super early, were able to resell very quickly and make a good profit on this, but you had to be an early adopter.
Yeah. Buy orders for the Molten Jetpack.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah. It also depends too, like on how much you value account worth. For me, having stuff unlocked on my account is valuable to me, but I know that's not true for everybody. So, some of these things that I might consider valuable, other people might not. And it is RNG. Like Ed was just saying here that it took him 41 chests to get a jetpack to like get enough sprockets for it. So it's a risk, obviously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
However, the sprockets are definitely a step in the right direction for anything random coming out of anything from the Black Lion trading post.
Yeah, sort of taking this a step further, like I wish they would add a similar system to Black Lion chests. Now they would have to do something. They would have to do something extra because, for example, I think that there should be a system. If I have a permanent contract of, let's say, bank access, whether I bought that from the trading post or whether I whether I got it from a BLC myself, I think that any regular versions of bank access I get should be worth a token. Simple 1 token, doesn't have to be anything crazy, and then you can use those tokens to get things, Black Lion weapon skins or whatever. I mean, Arena can come up with something to allow me to purchase from a list like we have here.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing I've been wanting and suggesting from basically ESO's crown crates, where they have a separate currency that stays constant. Like, I'm worried that they would be like kind of going with this different chest themes. Like, don't do that, because then now we have 1,000 more currencies, and that's just ugh. But like
you have the miniature
currency,
tickets.
Yeah.
And the miniature tickets, the miniatures rotate. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not so good.
Mm-hmm.
But Arena could do a similar thing, and that would make the chest itself feel more rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, that's kind of what ESO does with theirs, and I think that would be excellent. And it kind of gives people an end goal because, like Chat was saying, like it took them 41 chests to get the jetpack. I'm assuming that was eventually they got enough sprockets. If not, they would still be at it, which at least it gives them a kind of end goal. It still can be lengthy, but at least it's not, I bought 250 Black Lion chests and still haven't gotten my thing because I've just been unlucky. But yeah, I would like to see this idea go to Black Lion chests personally. I mean, any other thoughts on the Season 1 memory box? I mean,
yeah, it's still RNG based, but at least there's the sprocket system, which makes it a little bit less painful, which I like. And like Dale said, there's an end goal.
And
you can see.
And I do agree that like the currencies RNG based is like a little unfortunate. At least with ESOs, it was like this thing is a flat amount of the currency each, like when you turn it in. But you know, then the amount that you wanted to get out of there was
for certain things.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it would definitely be nice. Any final thoughts before we move on? All right, let us look at the best armor skin in the game. Abaddon's Mask, 500 gems.
Contain yourself there.
See, the question I won't ask Deo is that if he got it, I'm going to ask when did he buy it?
Actually, this made me get the edition and with the gems, and I was like, okay. So basically, the longest time it took me was waiting the 72 hours till I got my gems. But yeah,
So I wasn't sure how I would feel about tentacle hair, but it actually looks really good on my Ranger. Mm-hmm. But then again, that helmet I have is terrible, so I don't know. But yeah, it's I don't know. I like the effect of it. I'm tempted. Again, I find myself tempted to actually. I so hate myself for that, though. I don't like. I don't like gem store. I don't really like gem store armors. I want to wear stuff that I've earned by playing the game and doing something. Legendary armor or whatever.
And just give in to the power of Abaddon.
No. I just feel like I really like the helmet. I'm really tempted, but then it's like I'm wearing a gem store armor.
Yeah, but look, like I have a grin just like the helmet. I'm just like, eee. I'm so happy.
Just as long as you don't need dental work like the helmet does.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's a good looking skin. What can I say?
Yeah, and it is an armor skin. I mean, of course you can tell it's not an outfit. But 500 gems. It unlocks all 3 weight classes. So you get light, medium, heavy. So
it's got 4 dye channels.
Inks.
Yes.
At least it's not tied to an outfit.
oh,
Yeah, that's
my
true.
heart
An
would break.
Abaddon outfit. The power of Abaddon compels you.
But also this week, I mean, are you guys going to get it? I mean, I think everybody knows my answer.
Probably not.
Oh, let's
I
just
don't know.
this camera.
Who
else?
again, I'm actually tempted. I don't get that tempted by armor skins and outfits. I have to say, it's very rare for me. This is actually one that tempts me.
I'm
how.
kind of
How do
tempted
I
to.
ban?
And for Asura, it has Abaddon scaled ears, actually. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought that was
no,
a nice
that
touch.
might actually,
extra plus. It doesn't like get rid of your ears. They're still there.
that might tempt me because I like
They're
making.
They're not floppy, but you know.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What Tavik's saying.
I'm surprised they didn't do an Abaddon outfit, to be honest.
They could do one.
Because
the
honestly, when I was
statues.
making,
they still could. Yeah, I guess so.
to be fair, I would buy it.
And then you
Because
can,
honestly, I've been trying to make an Abaddon look, and I'm like, there's not enough like toga pieces. Like, there's not like a toga for heavy. Because I want my heavy
Someone told me
character
too
look.
that the helmet matches really well with Malik's demon stance.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely looks awesome, and like I
Well-
said, it's 500 gems. But yeah, other than that, if you do want to go pick it up, but also this week we are continuing with the anniversary sale. Most of it well, I think you guys can still get some of this stuff. I think it's still 50% off mail carriers. I know.
Yeah.
I know the gliders have come back, not on sale, but I think they're going away Tuesday as well. Also 20% off the Bat Wings backpack and glider combo specifically. 20% off storage expander and 50% off selected minis. Today is the start of 30% off additional character slots. If you need more slots, go do it.
Like Inks. For all his characters.
And then tomorrow is going to, and if you're watching on YouTube today, but 30% off the Crystal Savant outfit and Exemplar attire, and 20% off the Golden Feather Wings glider combo. So definitely, if you want those, pick them up, because more than likely they'll probably be there till Tuesday. It seems like is the kind of mentality behind it.
And thanks to 80, I was able to pick up my missing mail carriers.
Awesome.
Quick thing about mail carriers. I wish there was just like the finishers. I wish there was a random one that you could choose a random one, the random checkbox,
Oh, yeah.
so that it would summon a random one that you have. And I will say at 50% off, I actually think mail carriers are it depends how you feel about them, but I feel they're actually kind of worth it at the price of 50% off. I didn't feel super duper compelled at their original prices. I thought they were a little too expensive for what they were, but at 175 gems for most of them, or 150, I think they're a little bit I think I'll get value out of that is kind of my point.
Oh yeah, definitely. Any final thoughts? Like, what do you guys want to see now in the anniversary sale? I mean, we got additional character slots. I mean,
Shared inventory sale, please.
I'm waiting to see if there's a shared inventory. The other thing that's really sort of interesting is, so they did material storage. Now I'm capped on material storage, but I've seen people say they want that expanded a little more, and they would have probably sold more then as well.
Really?
Same being true for material, yeah, because it goes up to 2K, which I know sounds like a lot. I know that does sound like a lot, and it is for most
Is it still up, or did I miss it?
No, you can still buy it.
I think it's still there till Tuesday.
But I know that some people I know some people wanted to go to 4K or 5K, something like that. And I know that sounds crazy. What would you have 5K of? But at 2K, I still get Dragonite capped every week, and I consume as much as I can every day. So, still a problem. The other thing is materials, shared inventory slots. Like it only goes to a certain cap, which I'm okay with, necessarily, speaking. But if that goes on sale, which I hope it does, extending that, they'll sell even, like, just from a marketing perspective, they'll sell even more of those. It's on sale, you can buy more, so sell us more. And the only other thing, and I know that I am a super niche market here, but you can only currently buy, I think, 2 crafting license. Maybe it's 3, but not enough so that you can have crafting on a single character for all of them. So sell me more crafting licensing and put it on sale.
I'll actually agree with that. I would like to have at least 1 or 2 more.
I'll say bank tabs. I'm that much of a hoarder.
Deo, you need to be able to have more bank tabs first.
Increase the size of bank tabs I can have. I was going along the same track as, like, I want more ability to buy more of them, and then, but yeah. So, and if I think that was it for this week. So, Jim, where can they find you?
I can be found on Twitter at MalthanusMMO. You can also find me here on twitch.tv/TalkingSkrit on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For our 0 to Hero PvP and Fractal Night, we've been doing fractals during the off season because unranked is not a great place during the off season. So come on, join, have fun. We even pull people in from chat to do fractals. So
are you going to be starting up with the season starting up?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Because that'll be fun when that transitions into Path of Fire. But I will persevere. I will survive.
Sounds awesome. And Age, where can they find you?
Twitter and YouTube at AgeNet Road. I've just been doing a lot of recent testing on the Elite Specs right now, just mostly on Deadeye, but I've been trying out other Elite Specs. I still have 4 more to go through. I don't know if I'll stream it tomorrow, if anything, and I usually just do World vs. World roaming. I don't know if I'll do PvP starting next week. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I usually stream a lot of Guild Wars too, so if you want to swing by, feel free.
Awesome. And Inks, where can they find you?
Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at MMO Inks. We're an affiliate on Twitch now.
Yay!
We also hit 3,000 followers, so that's great. And also check out Patreon. I'll post some links in chat.
Awesome.
All the ways to check me out and support.
And you can find me at simply_Deo on Twitch and Twitter. And if you are popping at the last second, we will be doing a little bit of an after show. But if you want to watch this, we do put this up on our YouTube channel. Just search Talking Skritt. It's usually the first one that pops up. And I do want to thank the hosts this week, Aurora Peachy, Sigfast Strong, That Chevron, and Serene Virus, and also Age Night Road and MMO Inks. And we do have a community Discord. If you ever want to hop in, it should be, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're watching this on Twitch, it's in the info section. But that is it for this week, and we will see you all next week and see you in the game. Good night, everybody.
Bye.